So if you think that the EOG is basically the end all be all for your child, let me put your mind at ease, okay? The end of grade test is not what you think it is, okay? It is not just a test that they are trying to force your child to complete in order to see if they pass to the grade level. So today we're going to be going over the myths and the ins and outs of what an end of grade test is meant for, and how you can use that same information to help your child through the summer and into next year. Welcome to Miss Asia Educates. Greetings everyone. Hi, my name is Miss Asia Educates, aka Asia Davis. I'm a second generation homeschool mom, and I am also a former licensed educator. Now all I do is I create great and wonderful content and resources to help parents like you help their child thrive in excellence in home education. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's topic, end of grade testing. Now, end of grade test is simple. All right, it's simply a end of grade test that simply just shows what your child knows in a short amount of time. So throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole school year, your child has been learning different things from you or from a teacher. And they're based off, most of the time, these end of grade tests are based off of grade levels. So your child should be able to understand all the concept, skills of reading, math, and writing. Okay, and then sometimes science if they're in the higher grades. Okay, and all this information is put on one test to see how well your child has grasped the information from that grade level. Okay, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All right, so let's go ahead and get into some of the other misconceptions. Okay, a lot of parents think that this test determines if their child moves on to the next grade level, and let's go ahead and address that point. That is not true. So when your child takes the end of grade test, no, if they do not do well in the test, that does not necessarily mean they're not going to next grade level. Throughout the whole entire school year, especially if they go to public school, for example, they should have other markers to decide how well they understand the content. Okay, so that's a mixture of grades for some things. That's a mixture of different other types of tests, which are more given quarterly. Maybe they sound like a check-in or like a diagnostic or something like that. Maybe you've heard those type of words or something similar. And also, you have probably by now, if your child is about to take the end of grade test, because most of the time they take it that last month in the school year, you probably already heard if your child is, well, you should have heard by now if your child is at risk of retention or being retained. And that's simply from other data or other pieces of assessments that should have been gathered throughout the school year. So if you have not really heard anything like that, your child is most likely in the green. However, if you want more clarity and your child does go to public school, you probably need to talk to their teacher about how well their child is doing and what the teacher thinks how well the child will do on the end of grade test. Now, the end of grade test is, like I said, it's one test that shows how a child performs that day, okay? It is not, so for example, what if a child comes in and they're, maybe they're not feeling the best, or maybe they're super nervous, and they're normally throughout the whole school year doing amazing. They might flop on the test. Does that really mean that they're really gonna, fail that student because they had one bad day? No. Similarly, what if a child is kind of struggling or maybe being average or maybe below average majority of the school year, but then all of a sudden on that test, they show up and they show out, okay? And that sometimes happens as well, where the whole school year, it doesn't look, the child's really understanding a lot of the concepts. Then they take this one test and wow, it actually shows that they have grasped a lot of the concepts. So you see the difference there? So that's why the end of grade test is not meant to be a scary thing. It's really meant to just kind of understand, what does your child know? So hopefully you can now breathe a sigh of relief, because now you know end of grade test is not the end all be all, and there are other markers throughout the year. Especially if you're a homeschool parent, you know your child, you have been working with your child all year long and they have been doing different things. This particular test is just going to be an amazing plethora of information for you to help your child move on to the next grade level, and some things that you'll be able to, if for example they don't do as well on this test, then guess what? Over the summer, you can actually hone in on those reading skills. You can hone in on those math skills, whatever they may be struggling in. Hey, what if they ace it? That's great. That means that you can go into the next summer, this summer, or into the next year with confidence. But you should also that means that, hey, you know everything from this grade level, so let's up it a little bit, okay? Don't sleep on that information. If they are stellar and they get amazing marks, that doesn't mean that learning stops. It means, hey, that means we just need to up the rigor for you this upcoming summer or the upcoming school year. Okay, whatever works for your family. Now, let's go ahead and get into here's one other thing. So a lot of times parents, I've also seen this in the brick and mortar school, where basically parents are like, hey, I noticed that, I always use the pseudonym Little Johnny. I noticed Little Johnny is not doing very well in main idea. He has just been struggling. He doesn't do well with comprehension. And guys, this is literally 2 months before the testing begins. And they're like, hey, can little Johnny just get a bunch of, paperwork and worksheets so maybe he can be ready for the test? That's not how it works, okay? Cramming information 2 months before is only gonna put information in their head for a short amount of time. That does not mean that they have mastered that skill. That means that it's just in their memory banks in order to get through the test. And an end of grade test is more of a better marker for long-term learning results, not a short-term learning results. So please do not stress yourself out 2 months before the test trying to cram as much information that is going to be on that EOG, because you're going to drive yourself crazy, you're going to stress yourself out, you're going to stress your child out, and it's just going to be a whole thing. So instead, use daily, consistent skill building activities to help your child get to where they are. Okay, so maybe you get a workbook that is for your child's grade level, or you ask, if your child is in public school, ask your child's teacher for some recommendations and find like little small activities you guys can do on a day-to-day basis, homework, etc. There's so many different things, online tutoring, whatever. But as long as it's a small amount of time where the child is working on the skill day by day by day until they have mastered the concept, they have mastered the standard, okay? That is what's important. Long term and long equals better and accurate results. Short term are just cramming and seeing if you know this, etc. That doesn't help much, okay? So please remember that cramming is not the answer, but consistent learning equals understanding for life. Cramming is not the answer, but consistent learning is understanding for life. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the next portion. So now I kind of want to shift the perspective. So say, for example, your child, they have taken the end of grade test. You've gotten the results. Now you're wondering, hey, what do I do now? I've gotten these results. I see them. You have a piece of gold in your hand, okay? Whatever type of assessments, whether they are formal or informal, this would be considered a formal instruction, okay? An end of grade test, it's just literally a summary of what your child showed, what they knew that day, okay? So for that piece of paper can be used to help you, guide you through the summer and to help you, put together some fun activities. Maybe you notice your child was lacking on some background knowledge pieces, right? Maybe they had some historical information in there. Maybe they excelled at the literature portion, but maybe that fiction portion or nonfiction portion they were lacking at. Okay, maybe go ahead and use that information to help your child get more nonfiction type things, like maybe read nonfiction as a family, or go to some museums or some science fairs or something like that, or some STEM activities. The library has so many different things that if you let them know, they're able to guide you to different activities in your community, or Facebook groups can also help you guide you to those activities as well. Okay, so there's different types of things, but whatever they may be struggling in, the summertime is the perfect time to go ahead and get those things acclimated. Okay, so whether you homeschool or your child is in public school, these test results shouldn't be the end of the conversation. This is actually the starting point. Okay, this is where things get real. Okay, the nitty gritty. So the results give you direction. They show us where our childs are going next, and not just where they are right now. Okay, so we want to emphasize strengths. So whatever they did well on the test, where their strengths were, that's confidence. Whatever the gaps are, that means that you step in as a parent and now is your time to instruct them on those gaps, okay? Or if, say for example, maybe I've also talked about this as well, there's also other resources out there as well that you can integrate into educating your child to help them be on the next level. And if you need a little bit of help on that, I do have a few videos coming out soon on how to outsource certain types of help, so that all of the burden and all of the maybe the uncertainty doesn't have to fall on your shoulders, but you can actually reach out to other professionals and other programs and see and make sure that they are quality. They're going to give your child a quality education and help you along the way, right? So it's all about how you show up, not just about, not just about going with the flow and just being like, oh, I hope this works, right? We want to go in confidence. Okay? So, last but not least, okay? I just want to remind you guys, a test score does not define your child, okay? What defines your child is how they show up throughout the whole year, okay? Those moments where you saw them grow in their reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those moments that you pressed in and you're like, okay, there was a concept and maybe they were struggling with that concept, but then all of a sudden a light bulb came on. Now you're like, yes, you finally get it, right? In my own classroom, it was wonderful seeing my child. He is 4 years old. This was our first year homeschooling. He's a pre-K-er. And now I can know that he is actually going to go in kindergarten with much confidence, because he is basically, at this point, he started off like, didn't know much, especially when it came to writing. I was really nervous about the writing, but then now he is writing with confidence. He's writing words. He's able to read consonant, vowel, consonant words. His phonics is coming along. And lastly, I'm finding that he has talent in mathematics and learning how to put numbers together in his head and in hands-on and worksheet activities. So just seeing that growth, guys, make sure that you are honing in on those memories of your child growing, especially those home educators out there. And that, that when your child is even taking this test, if they haven't already, that you are just saying, hey, just show what you know. You know what I'm saying? And we'll figure everything out afterwards. This summertime is the best time to turn everything around. And I just have a few things that you can do to kind of help your child catch up during the summer. All right. And those things are, number one, especially if we're going to do reading, writing, arithmetic, one tip for each thing. These 3 things are important: reading, writing, arithmetic. And all these things are going to help your child excel no matter what. Okay. So if they are good in reading, if they're good in math, and they're good in writing, everything else is going to take care of itself, from the sciences, social studies, to all that. So for reading, you want to read consistently with your child and make sure that you are asking the right questions, okay? So we are not just saying, especially depending on their age level. They have a certain amount of rigor that happens when they are reading. So not only are they reading, but making sure that they understand what they're reading and then question them on a regular basis. It can be informal, where you two are just sitting down reading a book together and you're just asking questions orally, or it could be more formal, when you actually maybe have a passage and then they answer 4 to 5 questions that are matching to their grade level and to their understanding level. Now, for math, it's basically, consistency is a mother of skill for math, for sure. Reading, same thing. If you don't read, you're gonna lose it, right? Same thing with math. Really, with math should be one of those things that is done also on a daily basis, and you want to go over those skill levels over and over and over again. One thing that I did notice of what a lot of parents, they kind of like to focus just on the numbers, but not on the meaning. I'm actually going to have more videos coming out about how to teach math in a way where we're not just teaching number facts, which can be helpful if we're talking about getting an answer quickly, right? But when it comes to understanding problems in life, okay? Because most of the time where a lot of children get mixed up on, there's not just the computation of the math, where you're just like writing like maybe 323 plus 452, right? And they're able to figure out the answer either mentally or on paper or by hand, but understanding a story and how the math is coming out of it, okay? And on my channel, I think that on my channel, we make sure that we value not only knowing the computation of math, but actually what that looks like in story form. What does that look like in word form? What does it look like in the world around us? So use math in a way that it can be used all over and in different types of ways. Bring it off the paper see if your child understands different word problems and different ways to apply math in real life. And that is going to turn their math game around like that this summer. So let's go ahead and get into it. And then last but not least, writing. Writing is just such a cool, fun thing to do, okay? So of course you want to do over grammar. So maybe you can do like maybe correct the sentences, or, you know, maybe have them write a free write piece about what they did today or what they want to do this summer, or, you know, explaining a woman or man in history. Or there's so many different things where you can actually get them more confident in their writing. And then over time you say, hey, we're going to edit, and we're going over the grammar pieces. Now we're going to edit, and we're going to go over, okay, how we can structure these paragraphs effectively. So writing can be just a fun thing that you integrate into reading and math, and maybe tell them to write. Writing gets better the more and more you do it. So all these three things, notice that I've kind of been saying the same thing. Consistency. So have your child write on a regular basis, have your child read on a regular basis and answer questions, and have your child do math and see where the reading, writing, arithmetic all apply to the world around them. That's going to take them to the next level next school year. Okay? And you can take that to the bank. All right. So I hope you found this all very helpful to you. I also have a catch up and level up playlist, summer playlist. Go ahead and check it out. If you check out my playlist, I break all this stuff down even more on how your children can get better at reading, writing, arithmetic, and how to bring that fun out of the summer, but still have a rigorous learning environment. Okay, so if that all sounds great, go ahead and check out that playlist. And thank you guys so much for being here. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys the next time. Grace and peace. Ciao, ciao.